So this is what we are doing, like A to B. Yeah. So like A to B, you can get the probability density and then do an integration between A to B like this and get the value. Okay, that how much probability is there within their range. So that is very important. Mod psi x square is not probability, it's only probability density, because at any given point, you cannot say this word probability, it has no meaning. So it's only a density at that point. So then we say that if you normalize the total probability as 1 between whatever is the volume element, then it is called a normalized wave function. If it is not normalized, you can always normalize by multiplying by a constant a such that this is equal to 1. So then it is called a normalizable function. So for example, a e to the minus x is not a normalizable function over minus infinity to plus infinity, because any value of a is not enough to normalize, simply because this integral, if you do between minus infinity to plus infinity, will become infinity and not finite. So you cannot choose a finite value of a to normalize. So this is something that we discussed very in great detail. What is a normalizable function and what is a normalized function? Okay, that is very important. So normalized functions are when this is normalized to unity. The integral of the total function like this is unity. Then we talked about desirable conditions of psi. So one of them we have already come to understand, that is psi must be normalizable. And of course, then it means it can be normalized, but that is not important. Psi must be continuous, because that's a physical concept of probability density. It cannot change abruptly, so it must also be single valued, and even there should be a derivative continuity. These are all desirable. So this is something that we have discussed. I will come to the Gedanke experiment later, because that is what I'm going to do. I also discussed a lot about quantum mechanics and classical mechanics by saying that Bohr's correspondence principle, that if h goes to 0, you go over to the classical mechanics. And as you can see, in such a situation, the uncertainty principle is not there. But this is only a limit. H cannot be 0. So only in terms of the size of the present systems, H may be conceived to be 0. All right? Then we started with postulate 2. Again, a very quick description. I'm going to, of course, do in great details the postulate 2. So it is it says that every dynamical observable in classical mechanics has a corresponding operator in quantum mechanics. So that's very important. So you can say, corresponding to every dynamical observable, there exists a quantum mechanical operator. And that actually happens to be a Hermitian operator. We'll come to that later. So this defines a postulate defines what is the tool that is required for a dynamical observable. First postulate only talks about the state of the system. Now you can see we are coming to a measurable system, like momentum, angular momentum. So an observable is basically a measuring. So we want to eventually connect 1 and 2. Then how do I make a measurement on a state of the system? All right. With this, I just kind of continue on a separate note for today's class. Please remember that in every class, I will do a very quick summary of what I have done in the previous class. Okay, so all right. So I come back to today's class now. So I again write the postulate 2, and now I write very cryptically that there is a dynamical observable which is related to an operator. First, for those who do not know what is an operator, I'm writing with a hat, is something which works on a function. And again, for a simplicity, I'm taking a one-dimensional function and gives you another function, phi 2 of x. So that's the definition of an operator. It acts on any arbitrary function to give another function. Okay? Which function it gives, that depends on the operator. What we are now saying that for every dynamical observable in classical mechanics, there exists an operator. So the question is how to find this operator. Again, this is a postulate. So I can't derive how did they find the operator, but the rules are something that I will tell, and these rules are very, very consistent. So let me first tell that every dynamical observable.
Sir,
Yes.
sir, yeah, I can understand that for an every classical observable there exists an operator. But sir, what is the function of the operator?
That we'll see later. That will be the next postulate.
Okay, okay.
Right
And
now
sir,
I'm defining.
and
Yeah.
sir, why is it called dynamical observable?
Well, observable means they change in time. Yeah, that's
Okay.
how the classical mechanics things are always called
Okay,
dynamic.
okay, yeah. Got it.
So every observable can be written, and this is very important to understand, only in terms of position and momentum. I hope all of you agree. Classical observable. They are the fundamental variables in classical mechanics. As you know, there are two mechanics. One is called the Hamilton's classical mechanics. Another is called the Lagrange classical mechanics. Lagrange. So in the Hamilton's mechanics, every variable is written in terms of position and momentum. In Lagrange, they write as x dot, which is the velocity, basically. All right, so we will not worry about this. But the point that I'm trying to say that quantum mechanics, we follow this. The position, and this is very important, position and momentum are the two basic variables. Through which Hamilton's formulation of classical mechanics as well as quantum mechanics move. And this is, of course, very clear that they have a conjugate relationship, just as we said for the Heisenberg's uncertainty relation. If you look at the uncertainty relation, again, it is a product of the uncertainty of position and momentum. So you will see that position and momentum play a very important role in all of physics, and they are often called the conjugate variables. So if you write an observable in classical mechanics, you can first write in terms of position and momentum. And in quantum mechanics, you already know that the momentum and position are two valid variables and not velocity. Because if you want velocity, then I have to know at infinitesimal time change what is the position, which is precluded by the uncertainty principle. I don't know. So velocity is not a variable that we would like to do. However, momentum is a basic variable, and you can define velocity by simply px by m. That is no problem. But the basic variables are all in terms of position and momentum. Now you think of an observable, like for example, angular momentum. All of you know angular momentum. Have you all know this? Do you all know angular momentum?
Yes, sir.
So how is it defined in classical mechanics? R cross P, right?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
In
Yes,
three
sir.
dimensions. Now you see position, momentum. Look at the energy, kinetic energy. How is it defined in classical mechanics? Half P square by m. Don't worry about velocity, you don't need it. Right? So either by position or by momentum, if you start to think, all variables can be expressed. This is a very important thing to understand. So all I really need is the operator form of position and momentum. And then I should be able to find, using this expression, operator form for all other operators, all other variables. So this is where I think there is a question that was discussed other day, that we are using coordinate representation. And I think all of this class we will be using only coordinate representation. Again, coordinate representation means x. There is a second representation which is called the momentum representation. Again, p. So you can see everywhere there is a x and p. These two variables are very, very important. So I have a coordinate representation and I have a momentum representation. we will follow the coordinate representation for the entire course. So in coordinate representation, and now I write, again I will write only in the one dimension, x, the position itself is mapped to an operator which is just x. And what does this x do? It does only multiplication. So this is very easy to understand. So x is replaced by a position operator. Hello, am I audible?
Yes, sir.
Yes, okay. Because suddenly there is a power off, so I'm just worried. Of course, the generator will come back, but that's why I asked whether the internet is there or not. Yeah, it's still there. Okay, so position is replaced by the position operator, which is simply multiplicative operator. What does it mean? That means this operator x, if it acts on a function psi, what will it do? Psi is a function of x. It will simply give you x times psi of x. I hope it is clear. It simply multiplies this function of x by x, nothing. If it is x squared, it will multiply by x squared. So the operator for position is the position itself. That is the reason it is called the coordinate representation. You can immediately see that in momentum representation, what will happen? I mean, those who are already, I think most of you have already been able to guess. In momentum representation, momentum will become just momentum. Multiplication, simple multiplication. But we are all talking of position because their psi will be a function of p, not x. But anyway, don't worry about the momentum representation. Cross it out. So this is the position. Then all I need is px. I'm doing again in one dimension, but you can generalize. So what is the operator? And this is the most important discovery in the postulate, I would say. This, many of you might wonder, how did they really get it? Schrodinger and Heisenberg, I told you the stories. So this is actually h cross over I. This is very important, that you have an imaginary I and ddx. So in one dimension, it is ddx. Of course, is a multiple thing. Then there will be partial derivative del x. So just keep this in mind, that when we go to more than one variable, ddx will become del x. So this is my operator. So now, of course, it's not very simple. So if I have position operator, px, which acts on psi of x, what will happen? It will not multiply by p of x, because everything is a coordinate representation. It will actually have h cross over I and del psi del x. So del x acting on psi. So it will differentiate the function. So if, again, I'm repeating, if momentum operator acts on sine of x, for example, it will give you h cross over I cos x. Is it clear? I told you, operator acting on a function gives you another function. So this is an example. This is my operator. This is phi 1. This is phi 2. Is it clear?
Sir,
Yes.
the representation of the momentum operator, is it a definition you are giving or is it a experimental fact?
No, it is all, again, as I said, this is a postulate, part of the postulate. Okay. So this, using this momentum operator, the quantum mechanics predicted results which are experimentally verified.
Okay.
Okay. However, if you say, how did they find out? As I told you, I can't tell you, because that's the mindset, and that is where the many of the minds really work. So the postulates are never questioned. How do you get the postulate? And of course, this is more of mathematics here. But some of the postulates, like the first postulate, well, there is a philosophy of uncertainty principle. Here, I have overcome that. Now I'm trying to set up the framework. So that requires a little bit of mathematics, the operator algebra. But as you can see, this is not a tough operator algebra. All you need to do is the first derivative. You know calculus, so you should be able to do that. So the momentum operator is just this. Now you can see, using these, I can calculate many things. So for example, I want to calculate kinetic energy operator. So that will then become px square by 2m. This is my classical form. So how do I transform into quantum mechanical operator? Each of the px will become operator px by 2m. Each of the px is an operator in coordinate representation h cross over I ddx. Just 1 minute, I have a phone call. Hello? কোন 43rd এফসি এইবারের এফসিতে আগের নয় তারও আগে হ্যাঁ এটা অনেক আগে যখনই প্রথম এসেছে এটা তো 1 বছর আগে এসেছে আমি আপনাকে দেখে দেব চিন্ময় নোজ আছে না ওটা তারও আগে I will talk to you tomorrow. ঠিক আছে, I will see. If by chance it is missing, then we will report it. So don't worry. না যদি বাই চান্স এটা মিস হয়ে থাকে কোনোভাবে ঠিক মতো যদি রিপোর্টেড না হয়ে থাকে উইল রিপোর্ট ইট, ডোন্ট ওয়ারি। না এর আগে তারও আগে হয়েছে। হ্যাঁ ওকে I'm sorry. I could not mute myself because I am on the screen, so that's a problem. And these are institute things, so that's a difficulty of being director and being a teacher. Okay, so you have PX operator, so you have H cross over I del X, but it has twice. So what will happen? H cross over I is a number. What is the square of this? That will become I square, which is -1. H cross square is just H cross square, so minus H cross square over 2m. Correct? And then the ddx operator will do twice, so this will become second derivative with respect to position. So now you understand, this is the kinetic energy operator. If kinetic energy operator, it's an operator, don't worry what it is going to do, but if this operator, kinetic, let me call it k, if it acts on a psi of x, what will it give? It will give minus h cross square by 2m d2 psi dx2. I hope it is clear.
Sir, for me it's not clear that means how minus of h dash square by 2m this came.
You have a h cross over I, right? So
yes, sir.
So if px acts twice, h cross over I will become square of it. This is a number.
Yes, sir.
I square is -1.
Yes, sir.
So it will become minus h cross square.
Okay.
And then you have a 2m here.
Oh, acha. Okay. One.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
And then you have a derivative twice. Is it clear to all? Because this is a very important operator. The operator of kinetic energy. Okay. Now let us say I have a potential energy of a harmonic oscillator, let's say, which is half kx square. As it oscillates from x equal to 0. What is the operator of this? That's very easy, because now it's a x, so it's just a multiplication half kx square. It will simply multiply psi of x. But x is very easy. The problem is wherever there's a momentum. At this point, I'm not going to keep constructing operators. I just showed you how to have momentum operator, kinetic energy, and any potential energy, because that is all that will require. But we now know how to construct operators. Any operator. What is important is that this construction, and this is where this question is relevant, how did the construct be? This construction was very important in the sense that with this construct, all the operators corresponding to dynamical observable are very important term in mathematics. Hermitian. This is the only point where the mathematics might be required. So there are Hermitian matrices. Similarly, these are called Hermitian operators. Okay? I will try to define Hermitian operators in as easy way as possible and not very rigorously, because I don't know how many of you are quite rigorously positioned, because this is the first course. Okay? The Hermitian operators are extremely important, and they retain the basic physics of quantum mechanics. If P was not constructed in this manner, then all the important operators would not have been Hermitian, including P itself. Because P is, remember, momentum is also a dynamical observable, right? This operator is also Hermitian. So how do you define Hermitian operator? So I would first give you a one-line definition of Hermitian operator. But I'm sure I have to clarify more because you may not know certain terms. Hermitian operators are operators which are called self-adjoint. Have you heard this term, adjoint? Hello?
Matrix.
Yes, sir. In linear algebra, we heard the term.
Very good. You have done linear algebra, then you should know. Have you heard Hermitian operators then?
No, sir, only matrices.
So it is better to repeat
Matrices.
to describe again the adjoint one.
Huh?
So it would be better for me if you could again just say the adjoint means what does
we
it
will,
mean
we
by
will.
adjoint?
Since you have done adjoint of a matrix, right?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir, that's all we have done.
Please remember, adjoint of a matrix is a transpose of a matrix and conjugate, right? Is that right? Or is it only transpose?
No, sir, transpose conjugate.
Right. Because it can be complex. So I call it a dagger. So have you been introduced this term? Or just to a adjoint you write? So let me introduce this term for operator. Adjoint operator will be called a dagger. So what is an adjoint operator? It will also act on a function. So just like A acts on a function phi 1 of x equal to phi 2 of x, right? Incidentally, in linear algebra, have you been taught the Dirac notation of Bra and Ket?
No, sir.
Okay, so I will avoid it for the time being, but it is very useful to use Dirac bracket notation. Okay, so if I have given an operator A which acts on a function, so let me write consistently the hats. So if I have an operator A which acts on a phi 1 of x to give you phi 2 of x, the question that I'm going to ask is that what is the operator which acts on conjugate of phi 2? You understand the question? Very often we write it on the right side, but it doesn't matter how you write. To give you phi 2 star x. So if an operator acts on phi 1 of x to give you phi 2 of x, if you ask a question, which operator works on the conjugate of phi 1 of x to give a conjugate of phi 2, did you understand the question? So the question is, which operator acts on phi 1 star to give you phi 2 star? The answer is the adjoint operator, adjoint of the original operator. So if A is transforming phi 1 to phi 2, a dagger is transforming phi star to phi 2 star. In fact, in Dirac notation, this is called Ket, this is called adjoint vector or Bra. It is very easy to understand in Dirac notation. And in fact, I will not go into the notation currently, but I will simply say that every phi 1 of x is simply written in the following form without writing the x. The variables are unexpressed. Every phi 1 star x is written in the bra in this form. So I hope you can see this. This is the left is the dash and then the closing bracket. Here this opening bracket and then this comes on the right. So this is called the ket. This is called the adjoint vector, or sometimes this is called bra vector. But without using this, the physics is the following: that if I know an operator which transforms phi 1 to phi 2, then the adjoint of the operator transforms phi 1 star to phi 2 star. That's the definition of adjoint. Then I am saying that what are Hermitian operators? Hermitian operators are those operators which is self-adjoint. That means the operator itself is the adjoint, which means for a Hermitian operator, I can write this A. A itself, because a dagger is same as A. So that will complete, and this is a very, very important operator. In fact, we will come and discuss the Hermitian operators a little bit more in more details. But I think at this point, it is very important to understand this. Let me take an integral to complete your understanding better. Let me take an integral phi 1 star A psi 1 x dx. I hope you understand the integration. It's a definite integral. What is a definite? It's a definite integral. What is a definite integral?
A linear operator.
It has a no, not. It's an integral. This is an integral, right? Don't think of matrices. It's an operator acting on psi 1 of x, multiplied by phi 1 star x, integrated over entire range of x. Let's say minus infinity to plus infinity.
Okay, sir.
This will become a number. Do you all agree? Because it's a definite integral. All definite integrals are number, right?
Yes, sir.
If you integrate completely. I'm integrating over the full space. It's a number. All right? So this, again in Dirac notation, I will just write it down quickly. Phi 1 A psi 1. This is so simple in Dirac notation. I don't write x, dx, nothing. Minus infinity, plus infinity, all that are understood. I only write for phi 1 star conjugate phi 1, operator this, psi 1 this. And the two dash lines twice I don't use. Okay? But you don't have to again use it. I'm just making you slowly familiar with this. Now what I'm saying is the following. Let me again write this integral. Phi 1 star x A psi 1 x dx. I want to take complex conjugate of this. I hope you understand my problem. I want to take complex conjugate of this. Okay? What will be the conjugate? Can you write it? It will become minus infinity to plus infinity. How do you take conjugate? You take products of conjugate of the products or products of the conjugates in reverse order, right? Have you done this?
Sir,
In numbers like A, B star is B star, A star, right? So if you just let me write it and then I'll explain. It is psi 1 star x, then conjugate of A is nothing but a dagger, that's adjoint. Conjugate of phi 1 star is phi 1 itself. Do you agree? Those who have problem, please let me know. I'm taking
Sir,
complex. Yeah, tell me.
So in complex numbers, when we have learned conjugate of AB can be A star B star or B star A star, because complex numbers are commutative with respect to.
No, if they are commutative, then it's different. Otherwise, B star, A star, right?
Yes, sir, but we have only learned in complex numbers where
Yeah, that's okay. That's okay. I'm using the same philosophy for the function. Finally, this whole thing is a star conjugate number. This conjugate, I'm saying that the complex conjugate of this number is obtained by another integral, definite integral, where the left side is psi 1 star instead of phi 1 star. This becomes a dagger. This becomes phi 1x. How did I arrive at this? I start from this on right to left and take conjugate. So psi 1 conjugate is psi 1 star. Conjugate of the operator is a dagger. Conjugate of phi 1 star is phi 1. I'm just giving you a recipe. So conjugate of this number is just this. Just like in the complex numbers, you have A and B star. How do you write it? You write as B star, A star. Don't think of commutative. It's a reverse order. Exactly same thing I'm doing. But here it is more complicated because it is under integration I'm doing. I'm reversing this under integration. Okay? So now what is the Hermitian operator? This is for all operators. A is equal to a dagger. So for Hermitian operators, I can write a special relation that minus infinity to plus infinity, phi 1 of x, a psi 1 of x dx is equal to, sorry, this is conjugate, psi 1 star of x, a phi 1 of x dx. So I can keep the operator as it is, simply interchange the right and the left. So just note that I have a function at the right of side, I have a function at the left of side. That function is written as conjugate, but it may be whatever it is conjugate of something, right? So it is just written as a conjugate of phi 1 star. It's a definition. Then what I'm saying is that they are simply swapped. Both of, if you just simply swap it, both of them would be sorry. The complex conjugate of this is simply swapped.
Sir?
Yes.
Sir, I'm not able to understand that means in just the previous case, means when we are moving from right to left, there in case of a cap, you have written a dagger, and then here why you have not?
Because now I'm writing for Hermitian operators. I defined Hermitian operators are operators which are self-adjoint. Hello.
Oh, okay, got that. And sir, another thing, can we just repeat that concept here, sir? Here, sir, just below.
Yeah.
Sir, here means that you have summarizes that in phi 1 a
So
cap
when I take a complex conjugate of this number, this is a number, right? Because it is an integration, but it is a definite integral. This conjugate of this number can be obtained by another definite integral, where the integrands, there are product of integrands, just take their complex conjugate in the reverse order.
Sir.
Yes.
No, sir, not this one.
Yeah, not this one. Then which one?
No, sir. Sir, just that above. Sir, you.
Yeah.
Sir, you have summarized that in bracket that phi 1 bar a cap phi 1. This one, how we can? Yes, sir.
This you don't worry. This is the same integral written in Dirac notation. We have not done anything new.
Okay.
So phi 1, whatever is in the left is automatically conjugate. You never write star. That's a bra vector, conjugate vector. Then a, then psi 1 cap.
So
This
does the Dirac notation imply the? Does it imply an integration?
Yes. Whenever I do
Okay.
like this, complete closure bracket from left to right, it means it's a full integration between entire space.
Okay,
Everything is silent. But Dirac notation is something that I didn't want to teach. I just want to tell you that there are simpler way of doing. Okay, in Dirac notation. Yeah, tell me.
Sir, when you are saying conjugate, are you meaning transpose conjugate or simply?
No. See, conjugate of a number. It's a number, right?
Yes, sir. So that then I'm not getting the reverse order rule actually, because if we are simply doing complex conjugate, then actually the order is not mattering.
No, but I don't have the number, right? If your number is A plus IB, that's what you are telling, I think. Then its conjugate is, of course, A minus IB.
Yes, sir.
If these are real numbers, A and B. If A and B are real numbers, right?
Yes, sir.
But here I am writing this number as an integral. The original number itself is an integral. It is a number because I have a definite integral. I want to write the conjugate of this number in terms of another integral. So, so it is not at all relevant here. So if this really is a plus ib, then you will see that if you calculate this integral, this will give you a minus ib. That is correct.
Oh, okay, sir. Now I got it.
These two numbers will have this relation. So because I don't know the number, if I can calculate the number, I can very easily write the complex conjugate. Of course, you can calculate the number, but that is not the point. The point that I'm trying to say is that these two integrals are related by conjugate. So this is another way of defining the conjugate.
Okay, sir.
Okay. So in Dirac notation, you don't worry. I just wrote phi 1 a psi 1 star is psi 1 a phi 1. That's the simple thing in Dirac notation. It's also really left to right changing, except that for a Hermitian operator, a is a dagger. This is for Hermitian operator. In Dirac notation, I can write it because the dagger is gone now. You can see the right psi 1 has become left psi 1, left phi 1 has become right phi 1. Whatever is left is psi star. So that is exactly what it is. So this you will be just requiring a little bit training to keep writing. But if you can write, lot of unnecessarily long write-ups will be avoided. But Dirac notation, please understand, does not introduce any new physics. Just writing this in another notation to simplify my life. Is that clear? So for Hermitian operator, this is a very important relation. That phi 1 of x, a, I again repeat, star, psi 1 of x, dx, over the entire space, conjugate of this is equal to psi 1 of star of x, a, same a, phi 1 of x dx, minus infinity to plus infinity. So this, I would say, is a definition of a Hermitian operator. If I write a dagger, it is true for any operator. A dagger is always right. But if it is a and still gives you same result, or the complex conjugate of this number, that means it's a Hermitian operator. Is it clear? Because I need to define Hermitian operator with some mathematics. Okay, I could have simply avoided all this and told you what are the properties of Hermitian operators, why the forefathers of quantum mechanics assume that these operators have to be Hermitian. But I thought I would tell you what is a Hermitian operator. So this is mathematically definition of Hermitian operator, or which is same as defining A equal to a dagger. Is it clear? Then the question comes, why Hermitian operator? There are some interesting properties of Hermitian operator. So let us learn these properties. Right? These properties will be used in the postulate 3. When you come to postulate 3, what will happen in postulate 3? I have a state psi. I have a variable, measuring variable, which is A. Now something will happen. I have to find out, let's say, kinetic energy on a system. So this operator and the system, these two things I have defined now. When I do this property of this operator will be required. So you have to hold on your breath, but I should write the property first. So important property is that the Hermitian operators have what are called real eigenvalues. This is one very important property, and I think I'll just stick to it right now for the time being. Have you heard of eigenvalues?
Yes, sir.
So in context of matrices.
Doesn't matter. Everything that is in the context of matrices are also there in the operator. Operator and matrix are cousins, so don't worry. It is just that matrix has a dimension. Operator is abstract. Operator doesn't have a dimension. So, okay. So now if I write like this, A psi of x equal to lambda times psi of x. If What does this mean? If the operator acts on psi of x, it will give you some function. But if it turns out, what comes out is also the original function multiplied by number lambda, then it is called an eigenvalue equation. Now please try to match with your matrices.
Excuse me, sir.
Now you see your matrices. You have a matrix and only function becomes a vector. So matrix multiplied by vector gives you a number times the same vector, right?
Yes, sir.
Matrix A times a column vector gives you a number times the same column vector, right?
Yes, sir.
So the mapping is very simple. Operator is a matrix, function is a vector. We will do that later. That is exactly what is called the matrix formulation of quantum mechanics. But again, let's not worry about it. The postulates do not change. That's only a formulation. What dimension? Then it's an approximation. So matrix formulation is actually an approximation. This is exact. Because I have to introduce the order of the matrix. So if the operator, so I told you, operator acts on a function to give you another function. If it so happens that what comes out is also a number times the same function, it is called an eigenvalue equation of the operator, and then the lambda is called an eigenvalue, just like in matrices. And the psi of x is called an eigenfunction. Interestingly, every operator may have a multiple eigenvalues and eigenfunction. I've just written one of them. Multiple. So what is the property? The property is that the eigenvalues are real. So we are saying these lambdas are real. Remember, operator can be complex, just like I said, h cross over I del del x. Momentum operator itself had a complex number. But when it gives you an eigenvalue, they are always real. It's a beautiful property of Hermitian operators. I will try to prove it. At least this one I will prove it, just one. It's not very difficult. But I want to leave you today with this important thought, that the eigenvalues are real. And of course, eigenfunction, I am not making any comment on eigenfunction. I'm only making a comment on the eigenvalue, that the eigenvalues are real. And the fact that they're real eigenvalues is going to be used in the actual measurement. So for example, let me do one thing, momentum. Your momentum operator, again in one dimension, is a complex operator because it has I. Right? But it's a Hermitian operator. I will show this on the next class, that this is a Hermitian operator. Because it has to be. Because it will follow this relation. If I write A as a momentum operator, it will follow any arbitrary phi1 and psi1. You can try doing that. Okay. So, but right now I'm just showing you an eigenvalue equation. So let us say that I have e to the minus x or something, whatever. Or e to the x, doesn't matter. What will happen? d dx will act on e to the minus x to give you minus e to the minus x. So it will become minus h cross over I, e to the minus x. Am I right? And this is a very, very complex thing. Over minus infinity to plus infinity, we know it is not normalizable. And that is a problem. So I should say that for all eigenfunctions, and this is a very important qualifications that I must make of the property, which are normalizable, because I'm doing finally the integration, which are normalizable, the eigenvalues are real. So this is a bad example. This is a bad example. But let's take e to the ix. This can be normalized. If you look at the momentum h cross over I ddx, it's an eigenfunction. You'll have I h cross over I e to the ix, right? This cancels, you get h cross e to the ix. So you can see h cross is the eigenvalue which is real. So I should make a one correction that all eigenfunctions, when I say the eigenvalues are real, it assumes that the eigenfunctions are normalizable. So if psi of x is not normalizable, then of course this operator here is no meaning. In quantum mechanics, all our wave functions are normalizable. It is not normalized. So the integral is finite, it can be normalized. And in all such cases, the eigenvalues are real. We can try with energy, kinetic energy, whatever. You have to just find out the eigenvalue function. This is an eigenfunction clearly because you have same. Yeah. Yes.
Sir, if we take an example of a function that is 0 for x is equal to, x belongs to minus infinity to 0, and for 0 to infinity e to the power minus x, then will this function be,
No, it will not be. Is it a continuous function?
Okay, sorry, yeah.
So remember the desirable property of psi.
Oh, yeah.
So of course you can come up with a lot of counter example. We'll see. Those have become the part of the calculus. But yeah, as of now, I think when we are discussing the philosophy or the postulates of quantum mechanics, we'll try to avoid mathematics as much as possible. But this is a minimum that I require for you to understand that Hermitian operators, which are the cornerstone of all dynamical observables, they have real eigenvalues. And the definition of Hermitian operator is that it is self-adjoint. So in a summary, we are saying that every dynamical observable in classical mechanics is mapped by an operator which is Hermitian. And those operators have real eigenvalues. I think if you don't even want to know what is Hermitian operator, that's all you need to know, that the Hermitian operators have real eigenvalues. If you know only this much, then it is okay. Is it clear? Then I can go to the postulate 3.
Sir, what you hinted at the last line, can you please repeat?
No, I'm just saying that all operators corresponding to dynamical observables are Hermitian operators. That is number one statement. Number two statement is that the Hermitian operators have real eigenvalues. So remember, all my operators which I'm going to use in quantum mechanics will have real eigenvalues. First of all, I said all classical observables will be mapped by an operator. That's the first thing. Then I'm saying these operators are Hermitian. Then I'm saying hence they have real eigenvalues. This is all the three statements that I require as I go to the next postulate. Okay?
Sir,
Yes.
in that definition of, can you go to the definition of the Hermitian operator?
Yeah, A is equal to eta. That is very simple.
No, sir.
This integral
yes,
definition. Yes.
Yes, sir. So if I just understand it correctly, what you're saying, if we take a cap acted on I1, multiply with psi1 star, and then take the integral from minus infinity to plus infinity,
This is identical to this.
you will get a complex number whose conjugate, if we take, should be equal to
Absolutely.
a cap acting on phi1 and
Yeah,
psi1
yes.
star integral.
Absolutely, absolutely. You can try this. You can try this out. For example, momentum is already a Hermitian operator. I have told you. Kinetic energy is a Hermitian operator. So what are the Hermitian operators? I have given you some example. H cross over I ddx. Minus h cross square by 2m d2 dx2. Actually, here, this is not important. d2 dx2 itself is okay. Because this is anyway a real number. If this is Hermitian, this will be anyway Hermitian because it is a self-conjugate. Here, don't miss the I. With I only, it is Hermitian. If I take only ddx, it is actually anti-Hermitian. With I star become minus I, so it becomes Hermitian. But here, this itself is Hermitian. So you can take example of this. Here you can even forget about this. You can even forget about this. These are all numbers. So basically 1 by I is I. So you can take I ddx. I'm giving you two examples, simpler d2 dx2. They are both Hermitian. You can take some phi1 and psi1 and do that integration and check for yourself, okay? That is simple. Any phi1 and psi1, doesn't matter. But that's the definition of Hermitian operator. What I have now said is that they have real eigenvalues, which is very special. When the operator acts on a function to give you the same function multiplied by number, this number is real. Just remember this. This of course, this rule comes from this itself. This I will prove. So next class, I will first prove this and then go to postulate 3. And then we'll come back and have a lot more discussion on the operators. Okay, now it's already 6 o'clock, so you may be having some classes. So I will stop. Okay, and I have next class on Tuesday, 9 to 11. I think that day I'm going to take full class, no problem. So I will see how far I proceed. Yeah, yes.
So can you please share the notes what you write here on Wheeler?
Yeah, I will do that. But as you can see, my handwritings are not very good. So I hope you'll be able to read. Recording is much more important, but I will give you. I mean, I hope
Sir,
you don't get confused. Tell me.
sir, and another thing, sir, I have requested, Miss, can you please give any study material to us, or from where to read, or?
This is a very good question. So I will say you can look at Albert Messier, Quantum Mechanics. These are physics books, or Messier is good, or Schiff, Quantum Mechanics. Please do not start reading everything. Concentrate on the postulates. Okay.
Okay, means open the book and just to read the postulates and what are they saying.
Go to the postulates. You will
Okay.
Don't read everything, because these are really heavy physics books. In fact, physics also one semester they cannot finish these books. Okay, and we have to do chemistry, quantum chemistry. So take little. That's why I wrote to you that best way to follow is my lecture. In fact, I am now writing my own lecture notes on basic quantum chemistry. Okay? But
Yes,
I
sir.
am
So,
not getting-
sir, can you please just share those? Means your notes, so that would be very
these notes I'm
fine
going to
for us.
share, but I don't have. I have some lecture notes, but I'm writing a book actually on lecture notes. I'm writing a
okay.
book. I have been already commissioned by World Scientific and Elsevier to write books, but I'm not getting time, unfortunately. So I want to create my own book in my own way. I read other books, but I think, everybody likes their own way. That's a different matter. I don't want to comment on myself, but I want to create my own book. So that is the reason I said I don't follow any textbook, and particularly for quantum chemistry, because if I follow quantum chemistry textbook, there are good books like Atkins for quantum chemistry. Atkins is a very good book. Then I think it is Pauling and Wilson. These are good books. But the problem here is that the physics part is not explained in rigor. You understand? They have diluted the physics part, the postulates. So I'm trying to take the best of both, the physics books and the chemistry book, and trying to create my own lecture notes. But unfortunately, I'm not getting time because of my other job. So once it is over, I want to write this book. I've already signed agreement. So, but anyway, for the time being, these books, and I will come to these books are good. In fact, the whole course, because up to hydrogen atom, everything is in these books. So I would say Leonard Schiff is very good. Messier is also very good, very rigorous, but Schiff actually does a lot of problem solving. There are two different types of books. Okay? But I don't want to expand your life. Atkins is good, Pauling Wilson is also good on the chemistry part.
Sir, for understanding the concept, Schiff would be better.
Messier.
Messier. Messier. Okay.
Messier. Okay. For working out problems, Schiff. Schiff has more mathematics, Messier has less mathematics. Okay? And both are good. Both are good.
Sir,
Yes.
I had a question regarding the Hermitian part.
Yes.
So,
Correct.
do we like? Can we? Is it something like the original idea of using the Hermitian itself, is so that you get something, you get
Yeah.
values, eigenvalues that you can
Right.
actually
Right.
observe?
Right. That is
Is
what will
the
come in
entire
postulate
idea
3.
of it?
That's right. Absolutely. We'll come to postulate 3, then you will realize how smart these people were. And the
So they're
point is,
saying that all these observables that we have are determined by these operators, and
yes,
whatever we get will be something real and
will be
observable, so that
eigenvalues.
there is no.
Yeah, will be eigenvalue. But the problem is the function may not be eigenfunction. Because the function is any
Okay.
function, no? But you will see
Yeah.
whatever you will observe are real values. So that is where there's a big problem. If the function is psi is an eigenfunction, then you operate, you get a real value, you understand. But so it will become very complex, and that is where this superposition of states and all that will come. Just hold on. Huh?
Okay, sir.
You have already stated a part of postulate 3, but hold on. But I will come back and first prove this. I will come back to the Hermitian operator definition, prove this, and then go to the postulate 3 next class. Okay? I think you are all getting
Okay, sir.
seriously later for the next class. So
I don't have a class now, sir. So,
okay, you don't
okay,
have,
sir.
but others have. So
Yes.
so
Thank
I
you, sir.
will, yeah. So yeah, I will come out of the class. Yeah. So we will see on Tuesday. After the entire postulates over, we'll take an evening class, because then only I can explain the entire physics, entire metaphysics. Do you understand? So I am almost done with postulate 2, except that I have to prove that theorem. I'll revise, then go to the postulate. And this is the tough postulate, the measurement. How do you measure variables? Okay. What you said is very simple. You get real value, but there are a lot of complications because the function can be anything. So what do you mean by that? And why real eigenvalues? How did they know that they will get eigenvalues? Too many questions are there. Okay. And we'll see what happens when it is not an eigenfunction. What happens when it is an eigenfunction? Both we'll see. And I already told you in quantum chemistry, of course, we are seeing only one part, A psi equal to E psi, which is an eigenfunction. Remember. So it becomes simpler in life. We'll bring in the concept of stationary states and all that. All right. So, yeah, I mean, if you think more, quantum mechanics is not difficult. Initially, it is difficult. And so your language, your thinking has to be quantum operator and this. Then it's very easy. All right. So I think I will leave you at this point of time. Those who have class can go. I think most of you have left already. All right. So see you at 9 o'clock. I will share. I'll ask Professor Sen will share the recording. The slides I have to upload in the Wheeler. Okay. I will do that. Okay. Thank you. Bye. Thank you.